The invitation to the inner circle dinner arrived on expensive cardstock, smelling faintly of sandalwood. Dr. Aris Thorne didn't just run the department, he curated it. I sat at the mahogany table, listening to the clinking of heavy silverware. To my left, Thorne was explaining to the dean why my latest research project, 3 years of data on structural integrity in urban planning, was promising but perhaps too ambitious for a solo effort. He placed a hand on my shoulder, a gesture that looked like mentorship to everyone else in the room. "I've taken the liberty of folding your datasets into the departmental oversight file," he said, his voice smooth as silk. "It protects the work from being misunderstood during the upcoming audit. We'll list you as a primary contributor, of course." I looked at the dean. She smiled, her eyes reflecting the same adoration everyone held for Thorne. He was the man who saved careers, the one who found funding when the wells ran dry. "That data is encrypted under my personal license," I said quietly. Thorne didn't miss a beat. "Which is exactly why I had the IT committee sign off on an administrative override this afternoon. For your protection. You're so focused on the math, I'd hate for you to get tripped up by the bureaucracy of intellectual property." By the time the main course arrived, I realized my credentials no longer gave me access to my own server. Thorne had spent the evening praising my meticulous eye, while effectively erasing my name from the header of the most significant work of my life. When I tried to bring it up after the wine was poured, the dean patted my hand. "Don't be modest," she whispered. "Aris is making sure you're part of something much bigger than a single paper." I watched him toast to collaboration. He had the keys, the signatures, and the absolute trust of every person at that table. I was the only one who saw the lock clicking shut. I didn't argue. I didn't send an angry email or file a grievance with HR. Instead, I spent the next 14 months moving through the department like a ghost in the machine. As a technical operator, my day-to-day involved maintaining the metadata logs for the entire faculty's research submissions. Thorne assumed that because he had folded my work into his, I would continue to polish it. I did. I cleaned his spreadsheets. I formatted his citations. But I stopped fixing the ghosts. In large-scale data modeling, there are ghost entries, minor artifacts that occur when data is migrated between systems. Usually, I would run a script to scrub them. Now, I simply let them sit. Thorne's arrogance grew in direct proportion to his publication record. He began taking on more collaborations, which really meant he was absorbing the work of junior fellows and burying it under his departmental seal. Because he didn't understand the underlying architecture of the platforms we used, he didn't realize that every time he moved a file, a digital fingerprint was generated. I stopped using my personal license entirely. I worked only within the administrative override account he had forced me into. Every edit I made, every correction he demanded I perform on his papers was logged under his unique ID. 6 months in, Thorne was nominated for the Global Excellence Chair. He became even more helpful, hovering over the juniors, promising them a spot in his next big release. He stopped checking the raw logs entirely, relying on the beautiful, summarized visualizations I prepared for his presentations. I noticed a pattern in his own historical data, the work that had made him famous 10 years ago. There were gaps. Small ones. Inconsistencies in the timestamps that suggested data had been backdated to match his conclusions. I didn't report it. I simply cross-referenced the server migration logs from 2016 with the current directory. I created a shadow folder, not on the cloud but on a physical drive, and waited. One afternoon, Thorne came into my office. He wanted me to adjust the outliers in the new urban density study. "We need a cleaner narrative for the board," he said, checking his reflection in my window. "The logs will show the manual override," I remarked, looking at my screen. "I am the override," he laughed, clapping me on the back. "Just make it look like a system calibration." I did exactly as he asked. I logged in with his credentials, performed the calibration, and ensured the metadata reflected his specific instruction set. I did this dozens of times over the next year. I became the invisible architect of his towering reputation, ensuring every brick was laid exactly where he pointed, even when the bricks were hollow. The collapse didn't happen in a courtroom or a dramatic board meeting. It happened during a routine ethics audit for the Global Excellence Chair. The auditors didn't ask for Thorne's papers. They asked for the raw system logs to verify the purity of the data lifecycle. This was a new requirement, one Thorne hadn't bothered to read about in the updated bylaws. When the auditors sat down in the server room, I was the one who pulled up the interface. Thorne stood behind them, smelling of sandalwood, his hand resting casually on the back of the lead auditor's chair. "It's all very standard," Thorne said. "My team maintains a rigorous protocol." The lead auditor pointed to a series of entries. "There's a high volume of manual overrides on the raw datasets over the last 18 months. These are all logged to your personal administrative ID, Dr. Thorne." Thorne smiled. "Yes, I personally oversee the final calibration to ensure accuracy. My assistant here can vouch for the labor." "The logs show these overrides weren't just for formatting," the auditor continued, her brow furrowing. "They were used to delete contradictory variables. And here, in this sector, it looks like these same credentials were used to access archived data from 2016. There are thousands of system calibrations that appear to rewrite historical outcomes." The room went very cold. Thorne's hand slipped off the chair. "I think there's a misunderstanding of the platform's nomenclature. My assistant handles the technical side." "The logs are immutable, Dr. Thorne," I said, my voice level and calm. "The system records the biometric login and the specific terminal used. These were all performed from your private office suite, using your unique hardware key." I pulled up the final report, the one Thorne had authored. Beside it, I opened the real-time metadata tracking. Every single adjustment he had ever ordered me to make was highlighted in red, forever tied to his digital signature. But it went deeper. Because he had insisted on folding my work into his, the system had automatically flagged the discrepancies between my original, encrypted raw data and his adjusted versions. By trying to steal the work, he had created a permanent digital record of his own fraud. Thorne didn't shout. He couldn't. The evidence wasn't an opinion, it was a sequence of time-stamped events. By the end of the week, the nomination for the chair was withdrawn. By the end of the month, the university had opened a full forensic inquiry into his entire 10-year body of work. The helpful mentor was revealed to be a systematic ghostwriter of his own myth. I stayed in the department. I didn't take his office. I didn't accept the victim narrative the dean tried to offer me during the transition. I sat at my desk on a Tuesday evening, the building quiet around me. On my screen was a single notification: the administrative override had been revoked. My research was back under my own license. I clicked export on the 3 years of data that was finally legally mine. The sandalwood scent in the hallway had finally faded, replaced by the neutral ozone smell of the cooling fans. I closed the laptop, tucked it into my bag, and walked out into the cool night air.